John Davies and his wife founded Social Shift, which is an organized company organization in Red Deer that deals with therapy and mental health issues, and they have a collection of practitioners, and they take a slightly different approach to addressing issues around mental health, emotional health, and emotional intelligence. I had the privilege of hearing his wife, Brittany, speak to the Sarup students last winter. I was very impressed with her presentation there. I invited her to come to this class, and she invited her husband. This is John Davies. We give him a round of welcoming. The time is his. And remember our deal. He knows he's going to give you a break at about 10:02. So please practice that professionalism that you've been practicing, being respectful, not leaving the room during the presentation, and taking good notes. He doesn't even have PowerPoint, so he's got to really listen carefully today. But he's going to give you some very important information that, again, many of us who are much older than you wish we had when we were in your position. So, thank you for coming to Vernon. Welcome to our campus, and it's all yours.
Thank you for having me. There was a year where I used to swim at the Vernon pool. The pool in Ponoka was closed for a little bit. That's where I worked. So I was driving up today though, and I know it's usually snowy in November, but this has to be like probably the nicest campus in like the whole province. Like it's so beautiful. Thank you for introducing me. My name is John. I was a high school teacher at Hunting Hills in Red Deer for about 10 years, and then I became a school counselor for a couple of years. And so I've actually got like 12 years of experience teaching 70-minute blocks, like 2 a minute. But I haven't taught for a while, so I'm really hoping I can do it today for you. That I can keep it to 70 minutes, or that we're not just like hanging around for the last 20 minutes, because I really poorly timed this. My wife and I started Social Shift. She's a registered psychologist, and my designation is a Canadian Certified Counselor. And we started Social Shift kind of for a few different reasons. We have a different business model for other practitioners that are in the mental health field, so that's one of the reasons we started it. But the other piece is we often found that therapy and talking about people's mental, social, and emotional health was done in a really secretive way, right? If you've ever been to see a counselor or a therapist before, it's just in a room, right? And it's like nobody can see into it, and of course it's very private. And all of those things are really, really important to the therapeutic relationship, but it often helps create or even contribute to the stigma around receiving mental health care. So at Social Shift, we do offer lots of traditional therapy. We have 17 practitioners that work at Social Shift, a range of master social workers. We have registered psychologists, clinical counselors like myself. We also typically have 2 to 3 student therapists working there as well. They offer low-cost or no-cost therapy for those that don't have the financial means to receive counseling. And on the other side, we often try and come into the community, work with businesses, work with schools and other organizations to talk about mental health, talk about emotional health and social health as well, as a way to kind of move this conversation out of the therapy office. So this is one of our commitments, one of our values of helping kind of break the stigma around talking about mental health or emotional health as well. Now I know the major topic today was why emotional intelligence is critical to your success. And I kind of thought about it and I was like, man, I could probably answer this in like 2 minutes, and then we would just have like a 2-minute class, and then we could all go home, because I think we could do some bullet points, right? We could be like, emotional intelligence is really healthy to build and maintain a sense of self-esteem. It helps us create stronger relationships. It helps us regulate our emotions more. And that's kind of the answer, right? Like, there's our thumbs up, and we're done class, right? If that's really the question we have to answer today, then we are done, exactly. But the question, I think, holds a lot more. So today we're going to do a few things. We're going to talk a little bit about emotional intelligence, which is really knowing our emotions. It's very conceptually based. And we're also going to talk about emotional agility, which, if you can kind of think about what agility looks like in your brain, it's very movement based, and it's probably a skill that we work on. So emotional intelligence is having knowledge and understanding about something. Emotional agility is putting that into action. And it's a skill that we practice. Emotional intelligence, we would just sit here. I promise if we were just talking about emotional intelligence, we would have a slideshow and you would just take notes for an hour and 20 minutes. But emotional agility takes practice. And so today we'll do a little bit of moving around. We'll do a little bit of practice on our own and within small groups as well. That's our plan for today, is to talk about emotional intelligence, but also emotional agility. Yes, and I will, again, we're just going to do an activity, and then I'll give you a better definition of it. If you have a pen and paper, can you just put that down on your desk? And we're going to start off with a bit of an activity that requires us to move around a little bit. And I wasn't really sure what this room looked like before I got here, so we're just going to go for it. So I'm going to read out some statements, and you are going to move to one side of the room based on whether you agree with that statement. So on this side of the room is going to be like wholeheartedly agree. Okay, this side of the room is like, I 100% agree with that statement. On this side of the room is like the total opposite. I 100% disagree with what you just said. In the middle is like 50-50, and then because it's a continuum, you can choose to stand here because maybe you're thinking like, I don't wholeheartedly disagree, but I'm not in the middle, but I kind of disagree a little bit, so you'll get to kind of choose where you stand. You can probably stay in your rows, I'm thinking, right? You probably don't have to move rows. So I'll read the first statement, and then I'll kind of get you to stand up and move in the room based on whether you 100% agree, 100% disagree, or you're somewhere on the continuum. Okay, already? All right, here is our first statement. And I kind of want you to go where you want to go and not where the person next to you wants to go. So I kind of want you to be independent and autonomous here. So the first one, either you agree or disagree. I can control my emotions. I can control my emotions. 100% agree. 100% disagree.
Hey, Kara.
There's people that completely agree.
Why is Jordan
I would say, for the most part, your classmates feel like they can, for the most part. There's definitely quite a few in the middle.
I'm never hanging out with her next again.
I'm almost wondering if this is the like, I don't know, I just don't know. And then there's definitely a few on the I 100% disagree. Can I give you about 20 seconds just to share with someone close to you on the continuum why you chose to stand where you are? And I know 20 seconds isn't a lot of time, so I'm asking you to be concise. But just quickly share with someone next to you why you chose.
So when I saw it,
I don't think I understood very much.
I couldn't do it.
Oh, you're just not.
This side is I agree. This side is I agree. I think I can control that. Whether or not I do a good decision. Exactly. No, you
Alright, so. You don't know how to be
Alright, 20 seconds.
I love him. I control my emotions.
That side is no, that side is no. Get a load of that guy over there. Get a load of him. Literally get a load of him.
Did anybody hear something else from somebody else that they were like, oh, that was good? That was crazy. Did anybody hear something from somebody else that they
I like what you said when you agree with me.
and I'm not going to ask you to share if you don't want to. Okay, you heard some cool things. Okay. You don't have to move until I say the next one. Remember, this is 100% disagree. Over here is 100% agree, and then we've got this big continuum in the middle. The next statement is, my emotions come from my brain. What else do they come from?
My emotions. Oh no, they don't. Where's brain? Where's brain? My emotions come from my brain. You agree or disagree? I get what you're saying. Oh, disagree because
Rationally, like it's based on rational thought, or it's based on sentimental reality. I'd probably be like right here.
Yeah, I'm gonna say right here.
I'm like 70. Take a look. Most of your classmates disagree with this statement. Most of your classmates feel like their emotions do not come from their brain. And then we've got kind of a small group over here that are feeling like their emotions come from their brain. Can I hear, before we share really quickly, can I hear, is anyone kind of brave enough to kind of explain why they are where they are? Yeah, thanks. So you are
Anybody
like,
had heartbreak, you know you can't control that stuff. You keep trying and grinding your brain, but your heart just keeps dead. You just don't know what to do.
so this is thought. This is okay, very cool. I'm gonna go here and then I'm gonna ask one more. Sorry, I'll repeat it, but it'll be hard to hear for all time. Thank you.
I would say I'm standing here because my way of thinking affects how I feel. So I would say because of my way of thinking, I feel that different emotions regarding different occasions.
Okay, there's some nodding, but I kind of want to acknowledge both of you are actually on the same page, even though you're stood really far away. On one hand, the comment here was, well, I start thinking about something and it affects my emotions. You actually said something really similar, which is, I start thinking about something and I tell myself to think of a certain way, but it's my heart that tells me how I'm feeling. So those are two actually similar ideas, despite being quite far away. I'm going to ask one more. Sorry, I know I see your hand, but I think I saw your hand first. What's got you on the complete opposite side?
Well, before I feel the emotions, when I feel like sadness, happiness, rage, whatever, I just try to think about why am I feeling this, and I just realize, oh, because something from my past or something that happened to me, I just keep thinking about it like unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's why I'm feeling it. That's from here.
Yeah. All three really talking about the connection between the way we think and the way we feel. Right? Really significant connection. I want to make this connection because all three of you are correct. Right? There is a part of our brain called our amygdala, which is where our emotions mostly come from. In particular, listen, in particular, fear. Okay? Our amygdala is our fear receptor. If you look at brain scans of people that have an amygdala that doesn't fire, that doesn't have as much activity, those are fearless people. Because their amygdala is not firing the way that most of us are. If you look at brain scans of people where their amygdala is overreactive, they have a lot of fear. Right? They have a lot of phobias, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of worry. Having said that, it's important to acknowledge it's our experiences, our behavior, our thoughts that have a significant impact on the emotions that we're feeling. Anyone felt a different emotion when they are hungry? Also known as hangry, right? Absolutely. Whether we ate breakfast or not has a significant effect on our emotion. Anyone been to the gym this week and they just immediately felt better after it? Yeah, immediately felt better. Our physical health also has an impact on our emotional health. And we have a really strong connection between our gut health and our brain health as well. So what we eat is really important to how we feel in our emotional health as well. So, bit of a trick question. The three perspectives that we heard all kind of had some value and some truth to them. So, I'm going to move on to the next one. I'm not going to give you a chance to chat, I apologize, but we heard some really good ones. Our next agree or disagree, some emotions are better than others. Some emotions are better than others.
Each emotion is valid.
This side is 100% agree. This side over here is 100% disagree. And then somewhere in the middle.
You're not moving a single percentile? You're still at
Ours is
35?
literally just displacement zero.
I was
mostly over there.
I think I'm safe.
Alright, this is our third question, and I think we have the biggest spread, right? There's quite a spread here. I would say most of us are probably in the middle though, right? But this has the biggest spread. Can you, again, just 20 seconds, I know it's not a lot of time, can you chat with the person next to you or close to you on the continuum? Why you chose to stand there?
How do I say that? There's certain things that fix on that. Obviously, it's the most experience that it's satisfactory. Things that overall, like, sit inside it and then it's the point where it's just takes. Things that, like, still, we can hate the things that I don't think God hates things
Emotions actually have powers. Like, you know the theory where the mom want to get her kids want to get hit because she's doing a friend?
Yeah.
That is sadness. That is the power of sadness. How we can use
No kidding.
as well as anger, I feel is a small thing. It's coverable. It is never the power of emotion. That is feeling something.
Did anyone hear something from somebody else that was really good, that kind of resonated with them? That they would be open to sharing as well? Yeah, thank you.
I like what Brad here said. He kind of said that there are emotions that we use on top of one another to either empower us or to make us feel more confident. Like he said, when a mother's child is about to get hurt, she's going to gain that sadness, that fear of her getting hurt. Obviously, we never intended to fear something, never feel sadness. But that fear and that worry for the damage that could happen to the child is going to empower her to protect for what is about to happen to her child. So those may not be the most greatest emotions, they still empowered her to do something good and prevent something potentially.
Yeah. Is it fair to say in that case the emotion would be more useful?
Perhaps, yes.
Is that fair?
Which that's fair.
Okay, you're like okay, yeah, I'm going in the middle, thank you.
One thing that I found interesting, or like that relates to this topic, is that movie Inside Out, where he was like always happy, but then she was always happy, but she wanted to feel a different emotion, and then someone said that like sometimes it's pain, but like when there is pain, you can't just want to feel happiness, like you have to experience the pain, and your life will be like imbalanced if you don't have all the emotions. So that's what he decided.
Okay. Does that fit you right in the middle then? Is that thought of
We're all the way over there. But we just started.
That's okay. That's fine. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. Okay, I'm going to hear from the last one if that's okay. Thank you so much.
I'm in the middle because I think like that. because I feel like the like I mentioned here, it's not like one is better than the other. It's just one is more convenient than the other depends on the situation.
So we kind of said usefulness, kind of, your idea was like the necessity, right? And you're kind of talking about convenience, which I think is a really interesting idea too. Was better a hard word?
Yeah.
Yeah, purposely. Absolutely. All of those kind of three ideas I think we'll kind of actually cover today as we go through, but yeah, better is a hard word. From this second point here was, we probably can't be happy every day, right? And we probably can't be happy 24 hours of every day. And there are a whole range of emotions that we are going to experience and that do exist, right? On one hand, they can be more useful. On the other hand, they can be more convenient. Some are probably more enjoyable than others. But better is definitely a hard word. Thank you so much for getting up and moving and sharing some ideas. Have a seat. Thank you very much.
I know, I love this question. So helpful on my shirt.
For that activity, I want to kind of reflect on a couple things. First off, thank you for your openness. It was really cool to see some of you that disagreed with your friend and you went somewhere different, right? And you didn't just kind of stay with your group, so I appreciate that. I know these topics can be quite challenging, in particular for the guys in the room, right? One thing we probably won't get a chance to cover today, but there's a social layer here too, right? Which is socially, emotions are considered a very feminine quality. They're not really considered a masculine quality. In my line of work, there's not a lot of male therapists and not a lot of male therapists that do a lot of work with emotions. Because as a social message, we're told that's not really a thing that guys do, right? Keep your emotions to yourself, figure it out by yourself, and especially as parents, it's the mothers that teach emotional intelligence to the kids. It's not the dad's job, right? The dad's job is to teach strength and risk and maybe intelligence, right? Smarts. And that's not true at all, right? That's not true at all. That would be like saying 50% of our population just don't feel emotions. That's ludicrous. That's not true. So it can be challenging, I think, for our guys to have this discussion knowing that social message. And the last piece I'll say there is there's a really safe emotion for a lot of our guys, right? There's a really safe emotion that is socially acceptable, and it's anger, right? It's totally acceptable for guys to get angry. Of course it is, because that's a sign of strength, or it can be, right? And we know that if we continue this social message that anger is totally okay in our guys, and it's totally okay in our dudes, it's going to help permeate and maintain, cultures of violence. So this is a really important message for all of us, but we've got to acknowledge that social layer there. Before we started that activity, I briefly mentioned the difference between emotional intelligence and emotional agility. And a few of you, I know you were writing it down. Emotional intelligence, if you didn't get a chance to write it down, is the knowledge and the understanding of emotions. Okay, it's having the knowledge and having the understanding of emotions. It's quite passive, right? It's quite passive. Your teachers here want you to do more than just gain knowledge. They want you to gain knowledge and then have the skills to use that knowledge. So emotional intelligence is quite passive. It's having that knowledge and that understanding. Emotional agility is the action of using and having the skills to live your life. Okay, it's having the emotional skills to live your life. Whether that's in your relationships, in your family, at work, at school, even your leisure time. We still have emotional skills that make us more emotionally agile. Emotional intelligence might feel more like being in tune with your emotions. Emotional agility would be, what do I do once I am in tune with my emotions, or I know more about my emotions? Dr. Susan David is a social worker. She's an incredibly brainy person. She's got like 2 PhDs on as in social work. And her study is in emotional agility. And she claims that emotionally agile people can do 6 things, okay? And it's these 6 things that set them apart. The first one is emotionally agile people are able to adapt to change. Adapt to change. This is crucial. We live in a society that is constantly changing. There's a hyper-focus on generational differences, right? My wife and I watch MasterChef, and they just did a whole season on different generations. There's the boomers, the Gen X's, the millennials, and the Gen Z's. And of course, it's like TV, so they gotta make this big difference between the generations. But there was a lot of talk, the whole theme was how food and cooking has changed over the generations. And food seemed like a great way to kind of state the difference between those 4 generations. It would be like eye-roll worthy to use something like technology, right? To say what's the difference between a boomer and a Gen Z. But food is something that we all know really intimately. And so what a way to contrast the change that these generations have gone through. Any idea what the newest generation that's currently in middle school is called? Gen Alpha. They know what they want and they're going to tell you what they want. And they're the boss.
Yep.
Right? And that's Gen Alpha. As in this room, as those of you leave school and enter the workforce and potentially take on a role of leadership, how do you manage a generation that knows exactly what they want and they're going to tell you what they want? Right? We have to have the ability to adapt to change. Right? Especially in our relationships. The second thing emotionally agile people do is act according to their values. Act according to their values. We'll do a little exercise towards the end about our values, but our values are our core values. They do not change. Our values are things that we learn when we are very small and young. They likely come mostly from our parents and the experiences that we have in childhood. And our values stay with us throughout our whole life. It would be silly to make choices and decisions based on things like our preferences or our personality, because those things can change. It's important to make decisions based on our values, because those things don't change. Now, our values might come up in different contexts throughout our life. Our values might look a little bit different or shift in importance as we go from high school to college, college to the workforce, as we are single and then start a relationship with somebody else or start a family with that person. Those values change and shift slightly in importance, but the values that we hold stay with us for our whole life. All the way from the day we were born, maybe not quite the day we were born, after that, to later in life. The third thing emotionally agile people do is they commit to long-term goals. They commit to long-term goals. Emotionally agile people are aware of the here and now and the mindful moment in the present, but they are committing to long-term goals. If the second piece there was act according to our values, that's the compass, right? That's how I know where I should be going. But it's a long-term goal that I'm moving towards. My values show me the way. The fourth thing emotionally agile people do is they face tough emotions. They face tough emotions. Lots of work that happens on my day-to-day in the therapy office is doing this together, right? I would venture a guess that all of us can think of a time when they had a tough emotion that they pushed away, right? Or they avoided. And we do this in a number of ways. We do it through eating junk food, right? We do it through scrolling TikTok or Instagram. Whatever your poison online is, Snapchat. People do it through drugs and alcohol. People do it through exercise. People do it through binging a whole season on Netflix. There are lots of ways that we push away and avoid tough emotions. Emotionally agile people approach tough emotions with curiosity. We had a group tell us that emotions can be useful, they can tell us things. And if we get curious about what that emotion is telling us, what use it has, we actually can do something with it. The fifth thing emotionally agile people do is they practice self-compassion. They practice self-compassion. That word compassion is really, really important. One word we hear a lot when we talk about emotional intelligence is empathy, right? It's empathy. It's hard not to go into an elementary school now where they've got like 3 or 4 values for learning, or like what kind of students do we want to grow here, and one of the words is empathy or empathetic, right? That's a really big word right now. Compassion comes into the same idea. Often when we build an emotional intelligence, we start with sympathy. Sympathy is feeling bad for somebody else. And sympathy is like, I just saw you trip down the stairs. I feel really bad. I feel bad. That was probably embarrassing. Right? Our next attempt is to move to empathy. Right? Empathy is like, oh, I can totally understand how that person felt. Right? I'm like feeling embarrassment for them. I'm sharing that discomfort with the person. Compassion is the next step. Compassion is based on acting. If somebody fell down the step, I'm going to rush to them. I'm going to help them pick up their bag, pick up their papers they dropped, help them up off the ground, put their coat on because they're like frazzled and their coat fell off when they fell down the stairs. Sympathy is just feeling bad for the other person. Empathy is sharing that discomfort with the other person. Compassion is acting on it. Self-compassion asks us to look inward and do that for ourselves. How many people are really good at showing compassion to other people, but they kind of struggle showing it to themselves? I do. For me, it's way easier to help others and show them compassion than it can be to show myself. Self-compassion is an act of emotionally agile people looking inward and allowing ourselves grace and kindness. The last thing emotionally agile people do is they accept who they are. They accept who they are. Our values don't change. Okay, we have centeredness, we know who we are and we stand by it. But they accept who they are. Their long-term goals are not to change who they are. The ability to adapt to change is based on who they are within that circumstance or scenario that changes. And they can face those tough emotions that sometimes say, you need to change who you are. Right? Accepting who I am is knowing my values, having centeredness, being able to come back to those true values and who I am. Yeah, sorry. The first one was adapt to change. I'm not gonna lie, I've taught for 12 years and I've never had this much note taking before, so I apologize. I should have got some slideshows, hey? 6 was accept themselves for who they are. Yeah.
It's kind of a question.
Of
I
course.
remember reading this thing a while ago about how you don't really need to feel empathy to be able to practice it. And I'm just wondering what you think about that.
So many things. In my line of work, the people who do not feel empathy, we have a special word for that, right? Like it's a diagnosable psychological disorder. And it's called narcissistic. Right? That's what narcissistic means. They cannot practice empathy. They only care about themselves. Can narcissistic people help other people? I think so. Right? I totally think so. What would be the motivation or reason behind helping someone? That would probably be different than someone who's experiencing empathy. Right? Remember, the next step is compassion. I think you need empathy in order to act compassion. Does that kind of answer a little bit? Yeah, we'll do one more question. I'm just looking at the clock, so I know we're going to have a break in just a moment. Yes. I think you're right. I think the motivation why we act is really important. Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons that motivate us to act. Compassion, I think, requires that empathy, right? I think it does. I'm just looking at the clock at the back, and I've been told you get about a 5-minute break. So
Okay.
could we, go ahead, no,
No, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, can we be back before 5 o'clock? Like a minute or two before?
Yeah.
Is that fair? And then that's about 5 minutes. Is
Yeah.
that cool?
Be here on time, 5 minutes. There's a lot to cover, important stuff. Thank you. Oh, sure. I was just gonna
All right, thank you for that. Quick break. I think we need to pull more at the back. It was only a few minutes ago, but we just talked a little bit about what does an emotionally agile person look like? What skills is it that they actually practice? And that was the list of 6 skills. Ultimately, what's the next piece? Well, how do they do it? Right? How do we develop emotional agility? Where does it come from? What do we need to do in order to do it? There's 3 things. We're doing a lot of lists today as I read about the list stuff. So the first thing that emotionally agile people have to do is label their emotions. Label their emotions. What I've done in order to help us do that is I printed off what's called the feelings wheel. And it's that colorful circle on the back of the handout. It was developed in the 1980s as a tool to do 2 things. Number 1 is to give someone a better answer than you would give the Tim Hortons person when asked, how are you feeling? Good, okay, all right. That's what we would give the Tim Hortons person. Not that they don't deserve an answer, but it's probably what we would also say to someone really important to us as well. Right? If a really good friend or a family member asks you tonight, how are you feeling? I mean, you're likely to say, I'm alright, I'm good, I'm okay. Right? But if you look at that feelings wheel, those 3 words are not on there. Those are not emotions. Good, okay, and alright are not emotions. helped us with our emotional intelligence. I have a 6-year-old who loved the character Anxiety. That was like her favorite character because they were like busy and running around and wild, and that is my 6-year-old. And of course, you know, the counselor inside of me was like, oh no, that's not the character, right? That should resonate with you. But what a great tool for us to use to kind of understand our emotions a little bit better. On the feelings wheel, it works a couple ways. You start in the middle. There are 7 core emotions. And again, if you've seen Inside Out, those are all probably familiar. My preference, because I do feel like the word disgust is kind of a harsh word, right? It's cute in the movie, right? It's like a cute little emotion in the movie. But if you were to be asked, how do you feel today? You're not very likely to say disgust, right? That's probably not going to be a choice. So often, I really like the term judgment or judgmental. I feel like that's a better word to put in there. Once you've kind of identified a bit of a core emotion, then I might go to the second part of that wheel, the middle part of the wheel. And what I'm doing is I'm finding a more specific word to describe the emotion that I'm feeling. Okay? So today, and I'm not saying this because I'm here, but you might be feeling happy, right? And to go to the second part of the wheel has way more specific words. Playful, content, interested, proud, accepted, powerful, peaceful, trusting, optimistic. Those words tell me way more about what I'm feeling than just happy. From there, I can also go to the third tier. So if I'm feeling happy, and then today I'm feeling really accepted. And if I follow the strand for accepted to respected or valued, maybe that's a better and more specific way of describing the emotion that I'm feeling. Here's another example. Let's take a look at angry. We just talked about angry being a really safe emotion for a lot of our guys to feel, but it doesn't tell us very much, right? It doesn't really tell us very much. It's not very informative. If I look in the second round of our feelings wheel, I have let down, humiliated, bitter, mad, aggressive, frustrated, distant, and critical. Those tell me way more about the emotional state. Can you imagine if someone was like, I'm really angry right now, and you would say, like, what kind of anger? Like, tell me about your anger, right? What kind of anger? And they said, well, I'm feeling really let down. Oh, well, that's a little bit different, right? All of a sudden, that tells me a little bit more about what that person is feeling, right? The anger, like, go for a walk. Go let some steam off. Go to the gym and get to the punching bag. But if somebody said they were feeling let down, that advice all of a sudden is not very helpful. Why would someone who's feeling let down need to go to the gym and punch the punching bag? Right? Getting more specific by labeling the emotion is really important. If I follow let down, I get to betrayed and resentful. Again, it's more of a specific way of labeling our emotion. The way we deal with betrayal is different than the way we deal with feeling let down, which is different than the way we feel when we feel angry. So the first thing we need to do to become more emotionally agile is to label our emotion. And this is one tool to do that better. If you like this, Google the feelings wheel. It is literally the first thing that comes up. In fact, I'm pretty sure the website is thefeelingswheel.com. They did not get creative with the URL. Here's what I would like you to do. You could do this by yourself if you want to, but if you're okay sharing with the person next to you or in a small group of 3 maybe, I just want you to take a minute and I want you to kind of go through the process that I just led you through. Start in the middle. What kind of emotion are you feeling right now or you felt today? And see if you can trace it in the wheel to a more specific emotion. I'm going to give you just a minute to do this. If you're going to talk to the person next to you, just do it quietly. If you want to do it by yourself, you totally can. Just kind of go through that process of starting in the middle and moving outwards.
I was at work, and then I went to work, and then I went to class, and then now I'm at probably tired, yeah. Or I was even overwhelmed. Maybe bad. But I'm also happy.
So you were on the bad side.
Maybe, yeah. Perhaps. But I'm also happy. How about you?
I'd mostly been here.
Good, good. Busy day? Long day. I get that. At least it's almost over. Your
So
practice?
that's soccer practice.
Oh boy. Oh wow. So, maybe not almost, but getting there.
Almost over.
Yeah.
At first on my schedule, I was like, Tuesdays are going to be great. I have one class.
Oh, is this your only class?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why I took 2 jobs before this class.
Oh no.
And soccer practice after.
Where do you work?
Well, I work from 8 to 9. And then I work at the PE center as a gymnasium from 1 till 2:30.
Okay, that sounds fun. It's mostly like little kids that you teach, or?
Yeah, ages 6 to 13.
Okay. That's a good group, good age group.
It's too big of a gap though. And there's like 20 of them and I'm all by myself.
That could get difficult,
And then I just gotta like what's it called? Like a knock against
Demerit?
no, not demerit, but something like that.
Okay.
Like this guy didn't like what I was doing.
Oh, I see.
So instead of getting Ron, and Ron confronted me today, and I was like, well, I'm all by myself. And last week, and this guy only showed up last week. He only saw last week. He's a parent.
In this next portion, I'm going to write a few things on the board because I know a lot of you are taking notes. We're going to come up with 4 words that begin with the letter C that I think are really important attributes to have in order to become emotionally agile. The first one we just practiced was facing our feelings with curiosity. Okay, being open to what that emotion is. Right? I talked a little bit about anger, to letdown, to betrayal. Man, if you felt betrayed by somebody, that's a painful emotion. That's a heavy one. Right? And the closer that person is to you, the bigger that betrayal feels. If it's like someone you don't even know when they betrayed you, it's kind of like, I don't care about that person. Probably doesn't feel like it holds a lot of weight. If it's like a really good friend and they betray you, that's a painful emotion to feel. But embracing it with a bit of curiosity allows me to kind of move and be agile with that emotion. And that's really important, right? To face tough emotions head on, we have to label and face our emotions with curiosity. Was anyone surprised where they ended up on the feelings wheel as they traced it? Was anyone kind of like, whoa, is that what's going on today? A couple of us, yeah, a couple of us. It's a great tool to really, like I say, the more specific we can be with labeling our emotion, the more useful it can be so that I can act on it. In my office, I often talk about taking on the observer role. Again, we can be really good at observing other people, right? I can probably identify somebody else's emotion based on how they're acting or their facial expression or their body, right? I said earlier, it's really easy to see anger, right? That's a really easy one to see. If you ever driven in Red Deer, that's like 50% of the drivers driving angry. It can be hard to take on that observer role with ourselves. Taking a moment to observe ourselves. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. Okay, the second piece here is practicing acceptance. So the first one was labeling our emotions. The second one is practicing acceptance. Can I accept that's the way I feel? Can I accept that emotion into my life? Here's the short answer. No. Right? I don't have control over it. I need to accept it. I want to do a couple experiments here to kind of prove that we kind of have to accept the thoughts and feelings that we have. We don't really have control over them. Here's what I would like you to do. In your brain, can you please conjure an image of a purple elephant? Okay, a purple elephant, whatever that looks like. It can be like a stuffy or a cartoon purple elephant, or like a real elephant. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to think about that purple elephant. Don't think about it. Don't think about that purple, cartoonish elephant in your brain. What are you thinking about?
Paper airplanes.
We don't have control. Our brain is going to do whatever it wants. For those of you that are studying, have you ever been like, I just need to study brain, like just focus, and then your phone's dinging and the TV's on in the background and you're listening to music and whoever? Our brain does whatever it needs to do. Lots of the things our brain does is automatic, like breathing and moving and regulating our body. And so are our thoughts. Our brain acts to do a lot of things. One of the examples that was brought up during our agree or disagree was if a mom needed to protect their baby. Right? That's such an evolutionary experience. Think of how many moms have had to protect their baby since the beginning of time. That's a pretty evolutionary thing. Our brain is constantly trying to protect us and keep us safe. And sometimes that's like not what we need at the moment. Right? We are safe. We don't need protecting. We're just studying for an exam. Why is our brain focused wherever it needs to be? So that's our thoughts. Let's try our feelings. Let's see if we have control over our feelings. Okay. We don't know, because everyone's here, you've got some teachers here, everyone's here. We don't know who, like if we sat here for the rest of the night, and we don't know who's going to walk in through this door next. We don't know who it's going to be. But what if I asked you to fall in love with them? You don't know who it is. Could you do it? Could you just fall in love with that person? You can do it. Are most of you know? Are most of you like, no, I'm not going to fall in love with the next person that walks in the door? Okay, here's the thing. What if I gave you $1 million to fall in love with that person? $1 million. And you have to like, all of a sudden, everyone's like, I no longer need to work. Here's the thing though. Here's the thing. It has to be like authentic true love. Authentic true love. Not just like, I'm going to marry you for $1 million. I have to authentically love the next person who walks through the door. Even if I give you $1 million. Realistically, or most of you know,
Yes.
we don't have control. We can't just choose that emotion. Right? We don't have control. If we can face our emotions with curiosity, they tell us a lot of things, but we also have to accept that emotion that's showing up for us. Okay? We have to accept it. We don't have control over it. We talked previously about pushing them away, avoiding them. There's lots of ways that we can avoid feelings. Emotionally agile people not only face that uncomfortable feeling, but they also accept that uncomfortable feeling. They accept that emotion that comes up for them. It takes a lot of courage to do this. Right? It takes a lot of courage. The root word of courage is cœur, which is French for heart. So courage is actually heart work, right? It's using your heart. That's the authenticity, that's the truthfulness, that's the being brave. So it can require courage in order to bring some acceptance in. And then let's come back to that word again, compassion. Right? If it is a really painful or heavy emotion, can you show yourself self-compassion, self-kindness to accept that emotion? Then I can be agile with it. Then I can do something with it. Here's the third part. First one was labeling emotions. Second one was practicing acceptance. The third one is live your values. Live your values. Remember, our values don't change. They can pop up throughout our life in different contexts, different scenarios. The values I need as a parent might be different than the values I need right now in college. Live your values. Let's do another activity. I want you, for a moment here, and this one you've really got to concentrate on. So if you've kind of got a cell phone in your hand or something, you might have to do it. Okay. I want you to imagine it is your 80th birthday. Your 80th birthday. And who even knows what's going to happen between now and then, but I want you to imagine it's your 80th birthday. And all of your loved ones are gathered to celebrate your birthday. And this is totally imaginary, so anyone can be there. Right? Like anyone can be there that you think is really important to you. And I want you to take a moment to think, like, where would your 80th birthday be? Would it be at like a restaurant? Or would it be like a huge birthday, so you need like a big hall because you invited like 250 people to it? People that are important.
Yeah.
Hold on, we're almost done. You're like planning a birthday that's like 60 years from now. There's cake on the table, lots of candles. And someone really important gets up, stands up, and makes a speech about you. Okay? And they tell everyone in the room all of your really good qualities. Things that they think are really great about you. This is the way that you behaved your whole life. This is the way that you've created and strengthened your relationships. And this is the way that has guided you for your whole life. This person knows you really well, and they just say these incredible things about you. Those things that you just imagined can really help us understand what it is we value. If that imaginary person in your life got up and talked about all the important relationships that you have maintained, all the friends that you have, how you showed up for them in their darkest moments, how you were so supportive to them, so caring, you listened to them, that could really, really inform what's important to us. Maybe that imaginary person talked about how successful you were, how you became a leader early on in your work, you led a team through a difficult moment, you're a hard worker, people can rely on you, you're stable and supportive. That can really help inform your values. On the other side of the feelings wheel is a list of really common values. Because it can kind of be hard to sit here and think about values. One way that I might narrow that down to maybe just 3 to 4 really core values is I might go through the list. And this takes a bit of time. We probably don't have time during our session today, but like I never give homework, but if I was, this would maybe be your homework.
can give homework.
You can go through this list with a little pencil and just put a little check next to the words that seem really important to you. And you might have 10, 15, 20 words that you put a check next to. And then you're going to go through a second time. And you're going to underline or put a star next to the 4 or 5 words that seem like they are the most important values to you right now. Remember, our values are our signposts. Our values are our signposts. Our values are the ways in which we want to behave. The person that I want to be. The life I am striving to live. Our values are our compass. They guide our way. So as you go through that list, you might just put a little check next to the ones that seem important. And then as you go through a second time, you're probably underlining or circling, or if you're a stationary person, you might have like your color-coded highlighters that you're using. Remember, these values inform who you are, and these are the values that seem the most important for you right now. Okay? So whether you are a first or second or third or fourth year university student, these are the values that seem the most important for you right now. Okay? They help guide me moving towards that life I want to live and that person that I want to be. As you're looking through that list, I encourage you to kind of chat with the person beside you or the people beside you, and maybe just kind of share like what's coming up for you. Like what value are you like circling or putting 7 different stars next to? See if that person agrees, if they know you that well. I'll give you a couple minutes to share.
Check the ones that underline the most important ones, and then that's it. Which ones did you underline?
None, but I think looking at it, I think home is something like that. I think a lot of other ones for me go under because like home doesn't even have to be your family. It can also be like community that you're like serving that kind of thing, or like meeting in your home and like making sure that you're vulnerable with your friends and family in your home and that sort of thing. So I think like just looking through them, home really stands out the most.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much. I know that wasn't a lot of time as we try and fit everything in. This activity can be really helpful because that's just a list of really great words, right? Like there's no bad word on there, right? It really, really makes you realize these values are really forces or positive forces in your life, right? Whether you chose adventure, self-caring, faith, family, authenticity, these are all really great words. There's no way you can choose 5 words off there and get one of them wrong, right? Right now, these are the values that, as you circled them, you might have thought, oh yeah, I totally remember that being important as I was growing up. Or, this is so important to me right now. This is like the guiding star for me, right? Like this is the blinking light that I need to follow kind of thing. So these values can be really, really helpful. What I want to finish with today is these 4 words that begin with the letter C. This is kind of what we talked about to sum up with. What are the 3 steps that I practice in order to become more emotionally agile? The first thing was facing feelings with curiosity. Using that feelings wheel to get really specific with labeling of our emotions, but being really curious. It doesn't have to be good or bad, positive, negative. Some emotions can be more challenging. Some emotions can feel lighter, more relief. The second one was courage and compassion to accept. Remember, courage is the hard work, the courage to do hard things, face tough emotions, and then showing ourselves compassion in that process. Right? Giving ourselves some sense of self-kindness, self-compassion. And then the last one was being grounded in our values. That's that centeredness. Right? That's that I know who I am and I feel confident in who I am. It's something I can come back to. If I feel like I'm moving away from my values and I'm not really living value aligned, I can come back to it. I did mention a lot of this work is based on Dr. Susan David, and what I'll do is I'll share just a link if you are interested in reading a little bit more. She has a really good Instagram page where it's like these little cartoons that somebody draws for her. That can be kind of fun. And there's lots more to this. This was about an hour of me just wanting to share how do we build that sense of emotional agility. I know we have a couple minutes left. I feel like I timed this really well. I just realized that. I was really worried that I was going to be like either done half an hour early or it's going to be like 6:30 and still going. Are there any questions kind of based on what we chatted about tonight? And again, I know we don't have a ton of time. Sorry, do you mind if I interrupt? I just want to kind of repeat this question just before you ask it. The question was, sorry, we have a few minutes left. I think we can do it. The question was, I know you said you can't control your emotions. I just want to kind of clarify here. We can't control the emotion that shows up. Right? We can't control the emotion that shows up. We can build skills to regulate our emotions, right? It might not be quite the same, but we can't control the emotion that shows up, but we can try and regulate the emotions. Okay, go on, sorry. Okay. I can't quite control the emotion that comes up, but I can control how I respond to it and live with it, right? And I think that was a really good way of kind of clarifying. Yeah, does that kind of make sense? Okay, awesome. I think that's it.
Okay.
I know you